Okay, we're live.
What's going on, everyone? Craig, we're on the wrong slide already. I don't
Oh,
know
yeah.
what's going on. What's going on, everyone? It's Adam and Craig with Grandstand Golf. This is our round four DFS Showdown targets for the 2021 Masters. Thank you, everybody, for joining us live. Thank you for if you're watching later on. Craig, it was
Just a reminder if you're watching later on, we'll probably chat a little bit more about the round than we usually do. So we'll put a timestamp in if you want to skip right ahead to the picks.
yeah. Yeah, round three, Craig, at Augusta National. It looked like it was going to be pretty tough. We
Can I
thought this
can I go to the next slide now?
yeah, you can go
Okay.
there. That was my prompt for you to go there. We thought this weather was going to come in, and then the horns come out. We got a delay. After the delay,
I'm
these
hearing some
balls.
pretty scandalous things too. That like there was no electricity in the area, and so I don't know. As someone who was sort of rooting for weather to hit these leaders a little bit, I have to say I was disappointed to see how early they blew that if there was not electricity. But
The
the sources I have are not not concrete on that one.
the president of Ball Strikers Anonymous called in the lightning threat, and then afterwards we got a little bit of dampness on the green, and the ball strikers just went
Yeah.
nuts.
Yeah, it just
Like,
went crazy. And the thing is, I was starting to look. I was looking at the waves, and the late round wave was like creeping up in score, the scoring average, and
yeah,
I'm like, oh, this is gonna work out. Playing more of the early guys. And then after they blew the horn and the course got soft, they came out, and it was just a totally different story. But it made
yeah.
for
So
exciting golf. It made for an exciting back nine there.
it did make for exciting back nine. I got to spend some time with my daughter. I didn't neglect her on Masters weekend completely, so that
Yeah,
was
yeah.
good.
Like
But yeah, I mean,
just specifically for like the weather delay, and then and then you went back to neglecting her.
yeah, we had a solid 90 minutes. It was really good time.
Oh, that's great, great
Um,
parenting.
I know. I'm joking, of course. Um, Hideki,
Yeah.
four clear, 11 under. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, it was just awesome. His ball striking down the stretch there was just awesome to watch.
Yeah,
It seemed like he was just nailing every yardage on the number. I mean, that one into 15. I mean, he with the round he put up today, he three putt for par on 13 too. So it was just pretty crazy. I mean, I think the interesting thing going forward is, you know, essentially it's Hideki versus the field.
yeah.
But man, I was just talking to my wife about this. Like a four-shot lead is a lot going into a Sunday of a major because you're just either you win it or you feel like you've lost it. Like if he
Yeah.
bogeys or stumbles a little bit and someone comes and passes him, it's going to feel like he let one get away. So um, it's
It's such a
uncomfortable.
it's such an interesting, I mean, just story with Hideki. One thing, here's a stat for you, Craig. Hideki is only 4 years older than Will Zalatoris.
It's so crazy.
Like how is that possible? It's like a 4 or 5 year thing, but like
Because
in
he's been
terms of
on the
their birth,
PGA Tour since he was 13 or
I
something.
know. And Will Zalatoris is like a phenom, but he's like
But
that
he's
late.
he's 24 for
He's
yeah.
he's the Barry Sanders of phenoms. Like he
Well,
came
he's
out
more
late.
like a Xander, I feel like, where Xander came
Yes.
on like he wasn't
Yeah.
right out of university. All of a sudden, he's a top 10 player in the world. It was like okay, he went and he did
Yeah.
very well at one level, and then he came and he was rookie of the year, and then very quickly ascended. To me,
Yeah.
that's a little bit more what we're seeing from Zalatoris. But yeah, Lyndon, first time watching Zalatoris. This is why the same thing for me. I think the first time watching him instead of just like following stats was at the US Open. And I was like, man, like this guy is good. It just seems like everything he hits is on the number, like even if it's a long iron into the green, it's to the right spot. And then maybe
Yeah.
it's just a two putt, but the way he played that hole looked really good, So
Into
he
what hole, sorry?
just he does it consistently, but I'm trying to think maybe
On 15, he was kind of behind those trees on the left, and he just
oh,
kind of
that was I think one of the shots of the day. A
eh,
sweeping hook around the trees.
I don't call my wife over to like rewind. I made her rewind to show like the Rose putt yesterday, like coming back, like just show you how big these slopes are in these greens. I had to show her that one. But then that one, I'm like, you got to look at this shot tracer. Like that is unbelievable to be able to just,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm 215 yards out. That's fine. I'll just get my 5-iron and just sweep it around these trees and land it on like,
And still
yeah,
land it right on my number.
yeah.
Yeah.
We did know that. I mean, maybe not when the crews were burnt out, but I mean, he could do that.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's potentially the green we saw it the most. Was all of a sudden 15 looks so much more receptive hitting into it.
Yeah.
And then the other thing you'd see is all of a sudden you see ball marks. When people are hitting into greens, you start to see ball marks because there's that little bit of softness right at the top. The ball's biting. So let's jump into a quick question and then chat this leaderboard. Who's got the best? Spencer Jackson says, who's got the best chance of catching Hideki?
Okay. Well, I think that's a good question. The one stat below says the last 31 winners were all in the top 5 entering Sunday. So if I'm looking at the winner, it's Sorry, Connors and Spieth. It's from that group at 7, including Hideki. I'm going Xander of anyone in that group.
Yeah, I think to me it's Xander. I'll give Will Zalatoris just because I think he is still playing a little bit like I've got nothing to lose here. I'm not even a PGA Tour member. I'm just out here on a special temporary membership.
Yeah.
But I think Xander kind of has the most complete game, and he's a charger that can go out there and put up numbers on a Sunday to go win a tournament. So I think I would probably be in the same boat, but it's going to be interesting.
I would love to see Hideki win. It would pain me to see him collapse, but really, if I'm looking at the top 6, sorry, Spieth for a second. If I'm looking at the top 6, like I would be happy with really like there's narratives to all of them winning. Like Rose being close for a while. Xander, I mean, Mark Leishman, he was there with Adam Scott in the final group. That would be also a good story as well. Not the best of the group, but a good story. Like there's a lot of guys in that kind of top 5 there and top 6, including Corey Connors, that like it is such a life-changing.
Yeah. Well, I do think one of the things, I don't want to see this happen, but say Hideki drops a few strokes early, it's a totally different tournament. Like all of a sudden, Spieth is in play, Harman, but like if not, one of these guys has to go out there and do something special, and Hideki has to be at or around par, So I was very impressed. It was nice that Xander finally started to get showed in the broadcast. I was actually chatting on the phone with our older brother while, after the weather delay, and I was like, I was ahead of him, so the Xander putt on 15 happened. But like until that point, they really were like, they were kind of giving him every once in a while we'll show a shot. And you're like, you'd see Hideki hitting and you'd be like, hey, wait, there's Xander there. Like, obviously he's doing well. But yeah, I'm very excited. Very excited for tomorrow.
The other thing I want to note is there's pressure beyond winning. So top 12 and ties get an automatic invite into next year's Masters. That's why we see CT Pan playing this one. That's why we see Dylan Fratelli playing this week. So look at Henrik Stenson.
Corey Connors.
I think he earned with top 50 as well, did he not? Maybe not.
I don't think he's top 50. I could be wrong on that. He might have played his way into the top 50 in the last few months here. But regardless, yes, there's a lot of other things to play for.
That's definitely a narrative. Henrik Stenson has fallen off, and he's playing with his
I didn't
major.
Even notice him that high up on the leaderboard.
Stuart Sink, I don't think is going to crack. I mean, he's not going to move. Like the Safeway win was kind of his big kind of moment, career closing moment. Bobby Max just moved into the top 50. Like he still needs to maintain that top 50 position. Corey Connors, Brian Harman. There's pressure for all this leaderboard to crack that top 12. Like it's a moving number. You don't know what's going to be, but there's still a lot of pressure for everyone.
For sure. The other thing we have not brought up yet is Corey Connors' hole in one, and then also Corey Connors painting the flag stick on 18 and almost coming off that tier. His ball striking is obviously on form. But yeah, I think it's very exciting. I was a little bit surprised. I mean, to me, the big surprising fall off the board, it was not Bryson. It was JT. That JT's 13th hole, it was just, I mean, 90 yards out with a wedge in your hand. JT's, one of the people you'd think are going to kick the birdie putt in.
There's just, yeah, it's inexcusable. It's unexplainable. Like, I don't know how that big of number. Like, yeah, he also two putted or three putted.
Well, he had a
Like,
bad chip after he hit it in the water,
bad
or like a
chip,
bad pitch,
way
and
up
then
there.
yeah.
Yeah, you just can't do that. Like, when you're in the top 5, top 4 in the world, he's number 2 in the world. You need to hang around there. So he's probably going to shoot a great round and finish.
Well, and I think it really fell
7.
apart because he was hitting that slinging hook, and it got straight on him, and so he hit it way up into the trees, and then
Yeah.
he actually, I don't know, did you see that punch out he had? He had a pretty good punch out. Like, it was cool looking. I don't know how difficult it was, but it sure looked cool. But then, yeah, you're like, okay, so he's kind of stumbled a bit, but he's at a spot where, like, okay, JT can make the birdie out of this still, and he did not.
He did not. No.
Yeah.
But someone that will sneak into probably the top 10 and be like, oh, he had a good Masters, but it should be better.
Yeah.
Moving on. Yeah, let's do it. So round 4 scoring average, Craig, I kind of got 0.36 for round 3. Our picks were +1, but I think I take kind of the brunt of that with Adam Scott at +7 for my pick. Not good. He had a penalty, decided to chip in into 15 after he was already over. A lot of things happened for Adam Scott.
I didn't see what was going on with the penalty.
He was on the back, so he hit it past on 15. Mm-hmm. So he's kind of by that 16, 15 corridor there.
Yeah.
And he went to address it, and it just wiggled a little bit.
It was like okay.
And then he decided to chip that one in the water, go back across the bridge, and play. Gotcha. Oh, it was a mess. It was. And the bad thing was it was on featured groups on TSN, so I was like, oh,
there's no hiding from it. That's when you flip over to Amen Corner. But yeah, I think the other thing, our thesis was wrong. Like, we were expecting the forecast didn't come as we were looking at it yesterday in terms of the wind escalating throughout the day. It all turned into this sort of one event that turned into them clearing the course and then having a super soft afternoon. So I earned back. It was a loss on my showdowns, but I at least had a couple cashes to keep it from being a wipeout. So yeah,
I'm just happy I talked about Xander. At the end of the day, I'm happy I brought up Xander. It can save.
Actually, I think Hideki was one of the ones that saved some of my showdowns today.
Weather, I think so. The greens slow down a ton today. We saw that on the putts on 13 from the back to the front. They were just like screeching towards that pin, and everyone was being tentative because they've seen that putt through the week, and it's been just lightning fast. You could putt it into the creek almost. Craig, what do you think? Do you think they're going to suck those greens dry with the sub-air system that they have at Augusta National, or what do you think is going to happen with the course tomorrow? How's it going to respond?
I mean, I think they'll try to get them fairly firm, but the reality is, like, the sub-air system, it's not a total control thing. Like, it's not like they just they're just clicking the settings at the start of the game and are like, oh, we want firm and fast and pin placement, so I think even if they suck them dry, there could still potentially be a little bit of softness in terms of maybe they're fast, but they're a little more receptive or what. We don't really know. I think it's hard to think it will be. I think it'll be somewhere between what we saw on Thursday and maybe Friday in terms of how firm and fast, and then what we saw in the afternoon after the weather. Like, I think it'll be not quite as firm, but not quite as soft.
If I had to guess on scoring average, I think it's closer to 1, but I think it's still in the 0. So maybe a 0.75, 0.8, 0.9. Mm-hmm. That's kind of where I'm guessing. That's my guess.
Yeah. So you got a question here: to play Hideki in Showdown or to not play Hideki?
Yeah, so I'm going to go over a couple showdown slides real quick before we get into our picks here. Thank you guys for joining us. Throw any questions, either or, picks, plant your flag with who you think is going to win and winning the score. We'll talk about that at the end. But please hit that thumbs up, and we appreciate you guys watching and joining us throughout the entire Masters. We hope tomorrow is a great day to be a golf fan.
Spencer Jackman, the shot on 11 out of the trees was unreal. Are we talking about Hideki here? I'm trying to think.
The shot on 11 out of the trees.
Oh, Adam Scott maybe. Adam Scott had a nice one out of the trees on 11, but it wasn't. I'm not sure. Anyways, let us know who you're talking about. I can't think of how Hideki played 11, but
There was a ton of like on 11, people are playing like that or they're not playing the quarter, but everyone ends up in that corridor now.
oh,
Like
I haven't seen that, Spencer. I'll go check her out on Masters. Every shot that I can watch. But
yeah, I
apparently
don't think
Hideki had a pretty nice one out of the trees on 11. That's what kick started it all, I guess.
that's what kickstarted it all. Okay, so this is, I mean, just a reminder, we have tournament finishing scoring for tomorrow. Hideki will start out the day with 13 points, and it's his to lose, basically, if he falls back or not. And then you can see the rest of the points there based on the leaderboard. The low rounds, just to give you an idea, like we know the scoring average. We showed that on the previous slide, but how low can people go? And I think it's interesting to see not only the lowest score, but the second lowest. So, for instance, Hideki went with that -7, but then Xander and someone else went 4 under. I'm blanking on who else went 4 under, but that's a pretty big gap from 7 to 4. Day before was 6 and 5, and we had 5 guys in that range. Before round 1, it was Justin Rose at -7 and a pack of guys at -3. So if you think someone can move up, I mean, low score tomorrow might be probably more in that -6, -5 range.
Corey Connors was -4.
Of course he was. Of course he was. But even if you move from 50th to 10th, it's not the same. It's less points than it is just for one birdie. So don't put too much stake in tournament finishing position. We find that ownership is really packed with the leaders on the, I mean, yeah, they're playing well, but people, if you go out there and shoot 4 birdies compared to someone in 10th getting 2 birdies, the 4 birdies is going to win.
Well, and I think to me, the real crux of the issue is don't just stack up the lineup you can build that is currently in the best position, because all of those guys are going to be highly owned. So
Highly
essentially, from if you have a guy that's in 30th and he moves up into 15th, sweet, like the increase in finishing points is good, but it's also, do you guys have a power outage incoming or?
I don't know.
Okay, if you do, I'll just continue on and I'll talk about your picks and just talk about how bad they are and stuff. No, so essentially, like, the finishing points do matter. I will be rostering, maybe 2 or 3 guys on every
100%.
ticket that are in that sort of are getting some points now, and then if they go out there and they shoot 3 or 4 under from that group, they're going to be very good. But I'm also going to make sure I have 2 or 3 guys that are not in the top 10, top 15 currently.
At least.
Jennifer Johnson is saying Jordan. So we didn't really talk about Spieth. Before we jump into our picks, Jordan Spieth, I think even par overall on the round. It was a tumultuous round, I would say. It looked like at points he had momentum, but he kind of kept shooting himself.
Chipping it on 10? Like, that's crazy. Or that escape on 8. That escape on 8 to get a birdie there, that was absolutely crazy. It was such a Jordan Spieth round.
Yeah.
Besides, his putting wasn't as good as, I mean, we've seen from Jordan. Jordan Spieth in Augusta is always it's going to work more times than it doesn't work. That's just his history here. If he is your first guy in or your second guy in, I completely get that. But he's a high risk play.
So I was just meant more like, what did he do today? But to me, it felt like there was times where it looked like he might kind of capture the magic and turn on the gas pedal. But then ultimately he sort of kept finding a way for it to not quite get momentum going. But as far as the DFS play, I just really struggle with it because so if Hideki does blow it, I think absolutely Spieth is in play. I think it's hard to think that, the guys at 7, you could kind of see them potentially going out there and chasing him. Spieth is a long way to go to chase. But from a DFS point of view, he's so popular as a player that it makes it hard for me to get very high ownership on him at this point, because I think his... he's been 35% plus, I think, every day in Showdown. So there's the days where you're clearly not going to be in the money or high in the money because you don't have him. But then if he plays poorly, you're like, oh, all of a sudden it's shifting all of that away. So,
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, good to go. Jump into.
No, let's flip over to salaries real quick. I
Oh,
wanted
yeah,
to show
yeah.
salaries. This is for the top 10 and just ranking them by their top 10, but what salaries they currently had. Because the round 4 showdown came out, I think, even before really most of the round got started today. So Hideki Matsuyama is 8,900. He's going to be super popular. I would guess between 50 and 60% owned. So if you want to do a full fade of that and think he collapses, that's your play. And the other thing we talked about with round 4 is build your narrative. So if you think that's going to happen, maybe go Xander Spieth or go Zalatoris Connors. Like build someone you're like, okay, these two are going to be the 1-2 coming down the stretch. If
Yeah, I
Hideki
mean, you
falls
could
off.
also argue that Hideki could easily win this while still not being great showdown value. Like he goes out there and
Oh
shoots
yeah,
a
yeah,
72 and he gets his 13 bonus points, but he doesn't have, he doesn't rack up birdies like someone who's chasing him that doesn't quite catch him. So I think that's part of what you're getting at as well. But I do think the narrative building is key.
yeah,
If you're going to choose all the guys at 7, well, they can't all be in second. Well, I mean, unless it's a another 4-way tie, but like it's gonna distribute amongst all those guys.
yeah.
So don't choose all of them.
And if you want to play, I'm just looking at the salaries here. If you want to play Matsuyama, Leishman, Zalatoris, and Connors, that you can do that. But your next pick should probably be like Olazabal or Herman. Like you need to get someone that's going to be
Or Adam Scott.
Adam Scott. Oh God,
Oh
yeah,
man, like honestly, I didn't think Adam Scott was a bad play yesterday. It's just everything went wrong for him today. He's gonna be like
and the day
less than
before,
but he's gonna be like less than 1% owned tomorrow.
yeah,
And so say he goes out there and shoots 3 or 4 under, could be good.
yeah.
Lyndon is throwing out JT seems like a guy to put up. I love playing stars like JT when they're not in contention because they can just go out there and play so free, and it oftentimes is a very good final round showdown play.
Or Rom. Rom's going to come back. He's going
Yeah,
to get back to our top 10, and we're going to be like, of course he did. Like, of course he did.
yeah. Got to
That's
keep that Augusta top 10 streak alive. Okay,
yeah.
let's jump into it. We've been beating around the bush. Jump into some picks here.
Yeah, let's do it. Hit that thumbs up again. Sorry to remind you guys, subscribe to our channel if you have not already, but hit that thumbs up. Okay, let's do some picks, Greg. Let's do it.
Yep.
My first one, I'm going there. I'm going Hideki Matsuyama.
Oh,
8,900.
shocker.
Shocker. I very rarely on a round 4 showdown show do we pick the winner or the leader. I hope I just didn't jinx him there. Knock on wood. I think it's a slam dunk of a play, especially with his salary so low. So he takes up one spot of 6 in DFS. I can find 5 different players that I know will be unique in some kind of order, either leaving salary on the table or just getting guys that are going to be low owned. So I am playing Hideki Matsuyama, thinking he can go out and shoot, kind of like you said, if he goes out and shoots 2 under, I think he's a slam dunk to get, good bonus points, but still 2 under is a pretty good score at Augusta National on a Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he can do that. So he's 8,900. He's gone 69, 71, 65. Of course, that brilliant day today. He's 11 under. He's in first by 4 strokes. 3 eagles, 9 birdies, 4 bogeys. Someone mentioned the 4 bogeys in the chat already. That is incredible. Yes, his putting has been very good. Round 3 putting.
First bogey free round of the tournament from anyone, which shocked me when I heard that.
So that's like 88 times 2 plus another 56 or so made the cut. I forget exactly the number made the cut. That's incredible. So his stats are kind of all over the place. His fairways 71, 78, 35.
It's like 230-ish rounds. I just wanted to show off that I can do math on stream when I need to. Yeah.
There you go. His greens and regulations, 72, 77, 66. I think that's key. That is the key to win around here. You need to hit greens. His putting is up and down, and that's what we're going to get with Ball Striker with Hideki. If you've watched Hideki for at all in his career or played him in DFS, you know the putting is volatile. I don't expect him to go 1.4 tomorrow. I'm happy if he goes 1.61. And like I said, shoots a 69 like he did in round 1. That's enough to win. And so we talked about this. I need to give a shout out to Gerard if he is in the chat right now. we were on our live show on Wednesday night, and he said, "Do you guys ever go back after the show and make another lineup?" And that's
once we've talked through all these things with each other and with the chat, and
it's kind of, yeah, you talk it through, you talk it out loud after making the lineups in like just by yourself in the dark, and you're like, oh yeah, why didn't I play Hideki? He's a great elite ball striker. His price is a little bit suppressed, and he plays Augusta National great. And that's the last point here. Looking at his scoring average over the past 6 Sundays at Augusta, I think that's a pretty good key because we usually get the same pins here. There's a similar kind of pressure with Augusta. So his scoring average over that time is 69.83. And that is super, super elite. I think in the field, in terms of strokes gained over the field, he is one of the top 10, 15 guys that plays Augusta that well. So yeah, I'm going Hideki. I think his floor is so high. Even if he goes 2 under, it's still a good showdown play.
Yeah, I definitely will have him in lineups for sure. I think Hamilton is thinking, points out exactly what I'm thinking. He gained so much on approach today. Yeah. We don't need him to putt like he did today for him to be value. The biggest concern is how chalky it is. But I will definitely have Hideki lineups. It's just a matter of then who am I pairing them with? So that to me is where it gets tricky. And then I also am going to have lineups without Hideki. Like I think that I'm going to make more than one lineup, and I'm going to have some of both, because I could very easily see Hideki still being, I think he could win this with like being, potentially some value in Showdown without being crazy value. So I think there's a lot of different ways you can go, but I'll be doing both. Okay, my first one, I'm going with Webb Simpson. 8,700. It just seems very cheap to me at this point. He went 70, 76, 70. He's even, tied for 21st at this point. 14 birdies, 10 bogeys, 2 doubles. So why do I like this? He has been doing a good job. So essentially, he has a good round 1 and a good round 3. His ball striking, you look at the numbers, fairways, greens, and regulation. His ball striking was just bad in the second round. He was less than 60%, less than field average from the hitting fairways, less than field average hitting greens. The other 2 days, he was much better. So first off, 8,700 is an awesome price for him. But then you look at what he's done at Augusta. You look at what he's done recently. So at Augusta, his strokes gained total over 30 rounds is over 1, or is 1.2. It's over 1. In the last 14 rounds he's had here, he's gained in 12 of them. So he was one of your picks coming into the week. And I liked, he was your pick to win, which I still don't understand how you had Spieth as your one and done and Webb as your pick to win, but we'll deal with that another day. So his last, I knew he had good form at Augusta of recent because his finishes are good, but I didn't realize sort of how good it has been. But essentially, the last 14 rounds he's played here, he's gained strokes in 12 of them. Some of them are significant gains as well. So I think he's got a very good feel for the course. He's talked about how he's changed his approach to the course, and that has sort of led to a bit of a watershed moment for him going forward here. But then his form coming in, 20 of the last 23 rounds coming into the week, he's gained strokes. So to me, I love that. I think Webb is super solid all the time at 8,700. When you've already lost so many of the top players, yes, he's even par. I think he's someone who's going to move up the leaderboard on Sunday. So I like Webb.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. All the reasons I liked him going in, kind of continue on. T21 isn't really in striking distance, but it is exactly like these stars in the game coming back to their top 10. They keep their official world golf rank.
Get on their prize plane.
Get their points. I think his Augusta National strokes gain, like you said, past 30 rounds have been good. I think even more recently they've been really, really good. I think he's super steady. Also, price range right around Hideki, either good pivot or good addition, I think, to Hideki.
Just real quick before we move on, Brent Harris is saying he's got Webb on a top 5. I don't love that. I think it's top, unless we have some people really falling off. Even if he goes -5, you're then saying all the guys at 7
That's tough. That's really tough.
Top 5 is going to be tough for Webb. I think a backdoor top 10 is a much more reasonable ask than a backdoor top 5. Okay, moving on.
My second pick, Ryan Palmer, 7,800 on DraftKings, kind of the opposite rounds of Webb. He's gone 74, 68, 73. He's -1, T13 though. All over the place. 1 eagle, 13 birdies, 12 bogeys, 1 double. Excuse me. With those 13 birdies, he ranks 5th in the entire Masters through 3 rounds. So he's T13, but he's actually 5th in birdies with 15. Do you know who the leader is?
In birdies?
Yeah. It's going to shock you. The other thing with the Masters app is it doesn't show you eagles as well. So that's just birdies, which is a little bit frustrating because it should be birdie or better, but
I don't know. Who is it?
It's Robert McIntyre.
Big shot Bob.
Big shot Bob is leading the Masters in birdies right now, as per their website. So unless that's wrong, I'm going off their website. But with Ryan Palmer, why I like him, he also ranks 6th in birdies, birdie or better percentage on the PGA season. So it's not ridiculous for him to have these 13 birdies, 12 bogeys, psycho scorecard type rounds. And he's done it a little bit all over the place. I've been rostering him quite a bit, and I did coming in. I also think I'm going all over the place here, but I think his price isn't that attractive, to be honest. I think
it seems expensive for Ryan Palmer.
It seems expensive. And you see the guys underneath him, and you're like, yeah, I'm going to play this kind of star that's been here for 10 years. Ryan Palmer is just having a really good year, though. And I'm going to continue to play his volatility, his birdies, which I love in Showdown. All over the place. I've been watching him a lot. It seems like every drive, he's either like one hand off and he's pointing or he's doing something, but somehow he gets it done, and he's still sitting 1 under through 3 rounds. So
yeah, you look at his numbers, and you're like, no, he shouldn't be 1 under. I don't know where he's gaining the strokes.
He does something right every day. Round 1 wasn't great, but round 2, like his fairways and greens in regulation were great, and then his putting wasn't that good. And then round 3, his ball striking was really bad. He couldn't hit a fairway, couldn't hit a green regulation, but his putter got hot. Yeah. So I'm just hoping. I think he's that kind of guy that can go out. He can get 5 birdies, 3 bogeys, have a really kind of good scorecard like that, and still have a pretty good showdown day. And I think he'll be playing Hideki, finding a guy that's kind of 10% or less.
Yeah, I think ownership is a good point with him, because I think there's some guys in those high 7s who you're like, you look at the name, you're like, oh, I definitely want to play this guy, and he's not one of those. Yeah. So to me, I think Ryan Palmer is a perfect example of someone whose ownership is a bit low, but the value is still there on. My next one, I'm going Matt Fitzpatrick. He was a pick of mine coming into the week, and I'm going to put the stamp on him again going into Sunday. It has not gone how we hoped this week, but still, I think he's potential value. 7,900 on DraftKings. He's gone 74, 70, 73. He is 1 over on the tournament. Tied for 29th. He has got an eagle, 8 birdies, 11 bogeys, so he has filled it up a little bit as well. What has he done? So he's actually in a ridiculous amount of fairways, and his greens in regulation is not that bad, but his putter hasn't been great. So it's a little bit of an anomaly for Matt Fitzpatrick. I mean, it hasn't been bad the first 2 rounds, but it's still not quite. And it's a little bit tougher, I think, when we don't have strokes gained putting stats, because if all we're looking at is strokes gained putting per green in regulation, that's what, like, say 60% of the greens. Okay, so what's he doing on the other ones? Anyways,
it's tough.
I think that there is potential regression or improvement in the putting towards Matt Fitzpatrick's usual standards. But again, the 2 things that I was looking at, aside from sort of where he is price-wise, where he is in the tournament, he's got a great history at Augusta National. He's getting over a stroke through 22 rounds, so it's a large enough sample size that, to me, I think it's significant. And then coming into the week, he's gained strokes in 20 of his last 23. I know that sounds familiar because that's the same thing I said with Webb, and I double-checked, and it is the case for both of them. Now, this is using data golf, and they infer strokes gained from the match plays, but still 20 of the last 23 rounds, he gained strokes coming into the week. So a course that he has typically played well. He is in good form. I just like it. 7,900 seems like value to me.
Yeah, it does seem like value. Also, going back to Palmer, seems like a guy that will soak up ownership from Palmer a
Yeah,
little bit.
so I think this is a perfect example. Palmer, potentially, if you're playing other chalky guys, I think a Palmer is a much better play. If you're looking at, say, maybe more like a JT or like people who you're paying up for, but they're not going to be very chalky, then that's where you want to be looking at guys like Matt Fitzpatrick that are going to attract ownership because their name at that price.
Yeah, I agree. Some interesting kind of chatter in the chat here. Finau and Bubba have been brought up. I think both those guys, with their history at Augusta, plus their par 5 scoring potential, it's always a decent showdown dart.
Plus Finau, now that he's out of contention, then it gets easy.
That's what Spencer was saying. I think that's, yeah. Roll those putts a little bit harder.
Yeah. Nothing to lose now.
Okay, so I started off with Hideki. I need to get a little bit weird here with my last couple of picks, and I'm going super weird with my last pick. Harris English is my third pick, 7,000 on DraftKings. He's gone 74, 71, 73, Craig. +2, T38. I don't think anybody's going to look at him. Listen to this. 1 eagle, 9 birdies, 5 bogeys. Not that bad. 4 doubles. Like, Harris, what are you doing, man? What are you doing? Looking at his round is gone. He's hit a good amount of fairways. 71, 71, 85. His greens in regulation have gone better. They were the best today. 55, 50, 77. His putter, again, one of these, it's not matching, kind of something's going wrong every day, kind of like Palmer. So his putter was, even round 1, really good round 2, and then was I think second worst in the entire field today at 1.94. I think that can change. I think Harris English is actually a pretty good putter. Why do I like him for a showdown, specifically with his PGA Tour long stats? He ranks 15th in birdie or better percentage. So that's just getting, we look at it with a 1 eagle, 9 birdies. That's still pretty good for sitting T38. And then his scrambling, he ranks 5th in scrambling. Yeah. The doubles really shouldn't be there, but he's just kind of made a mess of things on a few holes. Even with his score today, he finished with 3 birdies in his last 4. And I think he was 4 under through kind of his last 10 holes or so. So he ended on a good note. I think he can go out there and just play well. I did see that he's paired with Bryson. Hopefully that's not a factor. I really don't play into it. I'm going to play Harris English anyways. But just one of these guys I think will be very, very low owned, but goes out there, shoots a -4. And I'm thrilled with it because no ownership at all.
Yeah, so to me, Harris English is a perfect example of a guy that I might dabble in, but I'm not going to commit a high amount of play to because I think he's got tons of potential to be a good play. But he's one of these guys that has tons of potential to eject as well. So it's one of these ones where you don't want to go all in on some guys. He's one of those ones that I think there's the potential upside too, and I'll put him into a lineup or two, but I'm not going to go in with all of mine because he's volatile.
And that's why I'm kind of grouping my 3 picks here. If I'm playing Hideki, I'm getting weird a little bit. I think Harris English is a little bit weird. Sub 5%. I'm kind of hoping for tomorrow.
Plus he's a Georgia boy, isn't he?
Ride the roller coaster. Yeah, he's Georgia boy through and through.
So, that's got to be part of the narrative.
Yeah, come on.
Okay, my last one here, the last one for us. Louis Oosthuizen at 7,200. How is this even possible? So he's gone 76, 70, 72. Not a great Masters this year. Oh, he's not tied for 10. So I don't know if we can get a number for him. But he is +2 at this point. He's got 7 bird.
If he's +2, he's T38, same spot as Harris.
7 birdies, 9 bogeys. Again, he's nailing the fairways. His greens in regulation are good. His putter hasn't been great. So the thing that's really surprising to me about this, he has been absolutely killing it with his putter so far this year. So far this 2020-2021 season. Yeah. I want to say his strokes gained putting coming in were almost a stroke or over a stroke. So it's a little bit surprising that his putter has not shown up for him. But again, the main thing I'm looking at, he's got a great history at Augusta National, 1.25 strokes gained over 40 rounds, huge sample size. I like that. And then coming into this week, he's gained strokes in 14 of his last 17. So I think there's tons of potential. Yeah. I think the form is there, so he's got tons of potential to have a good showing. I think Louis Oosthuizen is so unfazed by a Sunday at the Masters that he's going to go out there and psychology is not going to come into play. Like he's not going to. It's not going to be
Yeah.
like the moment is too big. He's been in playoffs in the Masters, so him trying to work his way up from 30 something on the leaderboard into maybe 20 something. Then yeah, I think. The other thing I really like about Louis is that if he does start to roll the putter, he's one of these people that can start to go on binges almost, where he makes a lot of putts. So I just think 7,200, it seems too cheap to me at this point of the tournament with who's still left in the player pool. So I'll take Louis Oosthuizen at 72.
Yeah, you also, for some reason, I feel like this season have this magic with Louis. Whenever you pick him, he's that guy that's like outside of the telecast, but they're like, and we're gonna cut.
And you're like, oh, this is gonna be
13.
good.
He's dropping a bomb here. He's dropping an eagle at 30 feet or something. It's just kind of mashed up with your picks a couple times. Yeah.
The other thing I love about Louis when he is making those putts is so often he has them die in the hole. So they just they look so nice when they die in the hole like that.
The other question we had was about Leishman's play and how Leishman has got there. I just tried to quit again. So I mentioned on our Discord, the stroke gain stats aren't really available. There are kind of best guesses out there, but they're not official from the Masters. The stats on the Masters website is what we're using. That's official stats. That's what we're using. From what I can see from Mark Leishman and the eye test is his short game is good and he's rolling in putts. He's kind of doing what he needs to do to have those 1-2 under rounds to stay in it. I mean, he's gone 72, 67, 70.
Yeah, I just want to. So Andrew Hudson and Hayden are chatting, talking about lefties, and I have always bought into the fact that Augusta definitely does play easier for lefties, and I did not necessarily translate that into any picks this week for my DFS, like any ownership exposure and stuff. I think going forward, I'm going to do that because I was like, we don't really have any super high powered lefties right now. Like back when Bubba was winning here and Phil were winning here, they were top players in the world, but it seems like all of the lefties have overachieved. So I think that's going to be something I'm looking at in the future. I'm going to take into account, I do think, Harman and Bobby Mack, I think will be popular plays for Showdown tomorrow. Yeah. But I'm going to roll the lefty narrative into my picks a little bit in the future at Augusta National.
Yeah. I think is 6,800.
Yeah, well, I almost picked him, but he's going to be very chalky at -2 at 6,800. I will play him for sure. It's just I need to think very carefully about how I play him because you can't play him with your chalky upside plays,
Where did you go? Why'd you flip to
another leaderboard? Oh, because you had all the -2s, so the scores were wrong on the other one.
I forgot to fix it. Okay, well, do you want to talk your pick to win and winning score, Craig? Also, what happened last week?
It was the Valero Texas Open. Jordan Spieth won.
Yeah, I think I did. I think
everyone picked Jordan Spieth to win.
No, I think I got the number right though for some reason. I don't know. Now I'm thinking I didn't.
If not, then you can take the credit for it. Okay, so pick to win. I don't want to pick against Hideki, I don't think. Let us know in the chat who your picks are.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm going to say...
Oh, man.
I'm going to do something silly here. I'm going to say Xander at -13.
I don't think that's that silly. I mean, that's a crazy low round.
Well, that's what I mean. He goes out there and he shoots a 66 to win on Sunday. It'd be pretty silly. Just it should be so awesome for it to happen. And then it's like, oh, Hideki doesn't really need to fade. Like he gets beat, That's what I.
Yeah. There's actually, I feel like the chat for the most part has been Hideki there's been a lot of Hideki's going to collapse, which is interesting. Maybe his ownership won't creep up into the 60s like I think it will, but
I think it'll be at least 40. I don't think, I think you said 50 to 60. I would say it's going to be over 40, but we'll see.
I'm going Hideki. He doesn't have to do much He can get his greens in regulation. He can kind of two-putt those par fives. I'm going Hideki on at 13 under. And nobody can catch him there. He knows he needs to go 2 under. Nobody can catch him.
Yeah. So Fantasy One is just pumping me up here. Zalatoris. We didn't really talk about Zalatoris a ton.
What? Yes, we did.
Well, okay. what I was going to transition into is that we've got our picks have not been great this week, but we've got sleepers painting this leaderboard. Leishman was one of Adam's sleepers. Yep. Zalatoris and Connors were both two of my sleepers, and then Neiman, who has not quite worked his way into the top 20 here, was another one of our sleepers. But yeah, I would love to see Zalatoris with a top 5 finish, maybe even challenge for the win.
There's no doubt. Craig went into a deep dive for Hideki for a podcast called My Boy. Like we did a My Boy podcast, and Craig talked about like the Japanese media that travels with him his entire career and every single PGA stop he's at.
Yeah. So and what Brent Harris. That's actually super funny. So he's saying that a sushi restaurant usually has nature videos on, and it was live from the Masters today, and so like I think that is so sort true. Of like we always talk about Jordan Spieth moving the needle. Like Hideki moves the needle for anyone, whether it's in Japan or Japanese heritage. They won't pay attention to it, but then all of a sudden, if Hideki's in it, it's like the spotlight goes there, you know? So I think that, to me, that's always really cool when in any sport, like it's the same thing you see in the Olympics when like some country that never wins a gold, they get someone that wins a gold, and it's like, this is the biggest thing to happen. And
I was trying to tell my wife what it was like. I'm like, imagine if Canada has never won a hockey gold medal. And that's like hanging over Canada for its entire time. And then they're in the gold medal match. Like that's how much media pressure would be on that team. The other kind of comparison, I think it's funny because like each country has, I'm sure it's the same with like the UK and South African golfers, but in our coverage, when Canadian Connors hit that hole in one, they showed it again. They went to a group of Canadians to talk about it, including like Graham Dillette, and then they talked about it for 5 minutes and they showed it again. They're like, okay, back to the coverage.
The other thing I loved is that when it first happened, like before they had a video of it, they like, so essentially on TSN here in Canada, one of our sports channels, they're playing before coverage starts. They're playing the different feeds. Yeah. So I was watching Amen Corner, and they're like, so they come on over top of it with the audio, and they're like, so we heard Corey Connors has a hole in one. We're gonna get the video for you as soon as we can here, but we'll leave you at live from Amen Corner until we get that. So I just think it's funny for people. I think Americans may not realize how much smaller countries like Canada, the guys that we have in there, everyone is so invested in those guys.
Yeah. Spencer asked a really good question. He says, do you think Hideki will give up the solo lead at any point tomorrow? I think that will be interesting, especially around 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. So as soon as those guys ahead of him get through 8 and they get their birdie or eagle chance and Hideki loses a couple, that's where I could see it. But I think it might kind of compress. And then
I also think, so say through 9, 10, 11. So say Hideki is just playing those, and then you have people who have played 13, 15, like there's always that. It's not really the lead because he hasn't played the scoring holes yet, but that is the other thing that we may see is it looks like the leaderboard is a little bit condensed there, but it's in part because Hideki or someone hasn't played the scoring holes,
which is kind of what we saw in 2019 too, with Xander took the lead, Cantlay took the lead through those par fives, I think, at different times.
Yeah. Rob Hauser's calling Zalatoris at 13 under. I'd like to see that as well. Sorry, Adam, what were you saying?
There's going to be great headlines pretty much. Yeah, pretty much whoever wins. There's going to be great headlines. There's a question from Fantasy One. You guys think JT will go super low tomorrow after a huge letdown day?
So we were talking yesterday about how scary good his ball striking looked on Friday. So I think that is still in him. It's just a matter of, playing without anything to lose, I think always makes it, is always a little bit scary for a guy like JT. So yeah, I do think he goes out there and goes low. But I've sort of also expected that from John Rahm for the last 2 or 3 rounds. That,
Mm-hmm.
especially as he's gotten further and further from contention, that like, okay, he's going to have these backdoor working his way into the top 10 rounds, but it hasn't happened. So
Yeah.
who's to say?
I would think I would be shocked if JT didn't work his way back into the top 10, even the top 5. I don't think is out of question. Um, yeah, he was one of my favorites going in. He was my favorite after Thursday. Um, he thinks he's going to win here, and I kind of agree. It's just a matter
Well,
of
I don't
when.
know
Like
this week, but
I don't think it's going to be this week.
okay, I think if that's that, I think we are good.
Yeah, that was great. Thank you so much for the chat. Please hit that thumbs up, subscribe to the channel if you've not already. Also, we do have a podcast. We will recap everything, so make sure to search for Grandstand Golf on your favorite podcast provider, whatever it is. It should be there. If it's not, send us a message on Twitter. Let us know, hey, why isn't our podcast on whatever app that you listen to? Listen to our or download our podcast, subscribe there, hit that 5 stars, leave a review. Leave a review before tomorrow night. We'll talk about it on the show as well. So go do
Yeah.
that, download our podcast, and leave a review, and we will talk about it tomorrow night.
And we'll have the mysterious third brother joining us, so you can get all of his Masters takes as well. But yeah, good luck, guys. It's been a pleasure this week, and we'll catch you next time.